Hello there. Hey, this is going to be a tough one. Paul Stone with the Crux. This one's going to be tough for me. I pay attention, certainly, to the headlines and stuff's going on. You put me in a pool with 100 people that all pay some degree of attention towards social media, and I'll be in the bottom, 20-30% who has everything memorized and my tracking the pulse of everything that's being said and everything people are arguing over. I'm not going to be at the top of that box. And I think there's a reason for that. But what I want to talk about today is the fracturing in MAGA. And that's going to be hard for me because I notice all the players and arguments and what's at the foundation of those. And then I go into that place where I know I've seen this before. And I go into that, that knowledge, that wisdom that humans are pretty limited. We're pretty limited. I mean, we're very capable of incredible things. But when it comes to anything that requires managing massive groups of people, I don't care what country, continent you're in, what century you're in, it doesn't work. So then I know that, and it might cause me to tune out a little bit because I just see this repeating itself on and on and on. So just for a quick pattern interrupt, in 1 billion years, the sun will have burnt off so much of its mass that the gravitational forces that keep it the size that it is now will allow the sun to expand in size, and it'll eventually literally touch the edge of the earth. So 1 billion years from now, this planet won't even be here. Just, hold that in the back of your mind. Not to say that anything we're doing today is meaningless, but just help with the perspective. It's like changing the aperture in a camera lens. What are you focusing on? So when we look at MAGA, it was a revolt, right? MAGA came into power as a revolt. America came into power as a revolt. There's been lots of revolts. Revolt is just when enough's enough. When someone touches a nerve and stands up and says, enough. And in a world where we generally are just pursuing more, it's the policy of more. More. And more doesn't have an end date. More never is satisfied. More is exhaustive. And in that regard, then destructive. Because you will literally churn through everything, every resource available. Human resources, patience, willingness, interest, belief, hope, and natural resources as well, for the belief that enough someday does meet more. But it doesn't. More is on its own journey, because enough is a policy of discipline. But when we look at MAGA, right, and it had enough. So it drew a line, and its champion, Donald Trump, stood up and started talking, and he did things differently. He gave nasty nicknames to his competitors, Lying Ted. I don't want to repeat them. We're all human, right? We're all wandering the planet. No one got to dry run any of this stuff. You think what you should do, you go do it, or you don't do it, and you learn, or you don't. You stay in ego, and you blame and scapegoat. You find fault. Believe me, it's no fun. You'll know you're climbing when you're being truthfully difficult with yourself, not abusively difficult, truthful. And I'm not perfect, but the pain that's come to my life has caused me to, because it was acute and it happened many times, and it was pretty tough at certain times when I was either driven in the ground and I was going to turn to dust, or I was going to, pick my ass up and try to carry on, but not wanting to repeat. That pain was painful, right? So I'm just looking at myself. So I revolted against how I had been doing things. You have too, in many ways. You may not notice, but be proud of yourself. So when we look at how MAGA comes to be, Tea Party before it, just another time where a group of people, or one person had enough. And, in MAGA, they champion a phrase, obviously it stands for Make America Great Again, which can only be accepted if America isn't great anymore, or at the time when the phrase was created. Very creative phrase, because it speaks to a very powerful consciousness. America's not great. Like, we're born into a land where we think this is the greatest country on earth. When you look up how happy it is, which is, I think, one of the most important metrics into measuring how great your country is, how happy is everyone who lives there? And we're 24th on the list. I think Finland is number one, Finland or Norway. And they have very short summers and a scant spring. So when you look at, wow, we could be the happiest country on the planet, can live in a very cold weather climate. How could they be happy in the cold? Just recognize, where are all the most powerful cities on the planet? They're mostly, if not all of them really, are in the Northern Hemisphere. And there's obviously winter in the Southern Hemisphere. But they're in cold weather climates, Seattle, Minneapolis, Detroit, Chicago, New York, Boston, Moscow, the Scandinavian countries, St. Petersburg, London, Paris, snows there. I've been in Paris once and it snowed about 4 or 5 inches. It's pretty awesome. Never thought I'd see it. I didn't know Paris got that cold. I didn't know it got snow. You just look around. Most of the most powerful cities are in cold weather climates. I think that inspires creativity. Necessity is certainly the mother of all invention. If you've found yourself living in a place where it has, a cold that could kill you, you make structures, you invent stuff, you find ways to insulate yourself from what Mother Nature is all about in the place you're living. Creativity, it's inspiring. So when we're up against it, that's when we're creative. That's when the dynamic nature of a human being flourishes. And when we're just coasting, and you can only coast in one direction, we're not so brilliant. We're not so dynamic. And when you look at in the core of the message, aside from when President Trump was running against people to win the office, he is talking about draining the swamp. And that to me is very powerful because it represents that there's poison. Like you would never drink water from a swamp. Like if you were literally dying of thirst, wandering a desert for 18 days and you come up on water and it's a swamp, unless you're going to boil the water somehow, or like you risk drinking that, you're going to be not only continuously thirsty, but now you're puking and diarrhea and all that. So you would make your situation worse. So poison, swamp, that's what's killing America. That's what's making it hard. And it is. And it's not just that, there's two massive forces inside the Beltway. There's the ones for this and the ones for that. And it doesn't matter if you're rooting for the R or the D, the elephant or the donkey. It's just any group at any time can be for this and another group's going to be for that. And they're at war. There's a famous Indian phrase, poem. The young warrior asks the chief how he can reckon this fight that's always going on in his mind. And the chief says, inside every individual is a white wolf and a dark wolf, and they're always quarreling. And the young warrior takes that to heart and considers that's just part of his makeup. He can't get rid of one of the wolves. So he asks him wisely, he thinks, well, which one wins? And the chief says, the one you feed. And so that's why I say, like in a billion years, this planet won't even be here. How sad is that? And then let that just draw attention to the fact that you live on a planet. Like it isn't flat. I know everywhere we go, we're absolutely absorbed with whatever's right in front of us, what we can see. And that's actually what blinds us. Think of this. As far as we know, and yes, we've seen credible reports of foreigners visiting our planet from outside the planet. But just as far as we know, and everything that our telescopes and scientific research can detect, is that this is the only planet with two very, very key differences. When you look outside the universe, right, it has a sense of itself. Let's just figure that. The moon senses the earth senses the sun senses, right? So everything senses itself, and it's all connected. So the universe has a sense of its entirety, but it can't see itself. This could be the only planet where there's anything that has eyeballs. Imagine that. So imagine if the universe was tuned in to us humans, created us humans, because of the brilliance of itself is unlimited. We're part of that, literally of the same atomic structure, composite that makes up the universe. We're just a little carve out, but we're not separate. And the universe is just wondering, what happens? What happens? And the second thing is you gave the planet oxygen. So when two planets smash into each other, when the sun is expanding and eventually turns our lovely planet into charcoal, there will not be one sound. Not a sound. Not a sound. Spaceship crashes into the space station, wouldn't make a sound. No sound at all. Because there's no air. There's no oxygen to carry the sound. Two planets collide. An Andromeda galaxy will collide with the Milky Way at some point. There won't be a sound. Absolute silence. Quiet. Quiet is actually the realm. And it's interrupted by noise. Noise in your head. Noise outside your head. Noises you can't control. Noises you're making. But if you just think of the magic just for a second, that this is the only planet that can see, where there's things, pretty much everything on the planet has eyes, worms don't. We see stuff. That's amazing. And we hear stuff. That doesn't exist anywhere else in the universe, as far as we know, until someone lands their little craft and steps out and introduces themselves to us. Then there's two places. All right, so let's say there's two places where this is happening. There's sound and sight. We're blind because we see in times where we want to take a look at a revolt, a revolution, because the revolution is then going to turn into the establishment. And then once it's got that power, it's going to go from being on revolt to being on defense. It goes from offense to slaughter whatever it thinks is in its way, kill whatever is ruining its shot at peace. I swear to God, the only carrot that's truly dangling out in front of all of us, groups and individuals, is the carrot of peace. That somehow, someday, we'll come up with the mixture to have it when we can't have it if we're in pursuit of it. It is literally, it's like carrot on a stick. It's tied to your back and you're chasing it. I'm chasing it. I've been on that gerbil wheel. And I just think if I run faster, I'll catch up. It's not going to happen. I don't know if it's a great saying, but I came up with a saying, and it's probably inspired by those who left Europe for the shores where there was nothing here in America to form America, is that peace is a country, and you'll have to move there. Now, that can be an internal move or an external move. It can be both. It's hard to be at peace. Let's say let's say you work at night, so you're trying to sleep during the day. Well, that's when all the noise is outside the window. It's when the kids are doing whatever they're doing. You're trying to sleep and you're going to work at 11 p.m., so you're sleeping during the day. So there's irritants to your peace that you might need to move away from, right? In that example, get your own place, have a crash pad that's soundproof and quiet. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So when we look at MAGA, it's Make America Great Again. It's a revolt, and it's got enemies. It's got enemies in the swamp, the entrenched establishment that's in D.C. that for some reason we keep reelecting these morons year after year after year, or, shot election after election. I know it's not every year. And we also have an outsider. So we have an outsider who's not a politician, who says America's not great anymore, and he has a vision to make it great, and people are following him that will help him in those endeavors. And we're going to fight an enemy. So now what's the establishment going to have? Going to have an enemy. but it's the one in power now. And when you look at going from being on the offense to defense, that's in a completely different disposition or, position to the country you're in this aspect, the country you're working to manage and run and make better, make great again. In the ways that you would make the country great again, you would grant more power to the people. You would gut the government. And I understand there's some attempts to do that. And now you can see how difficult once something, Reagan said it, he said the hardest thing to ever kill is a government program. And Trump, Doge, Elon Musk made one hell of a run at that. And let's look at our own little silliness. Elon Musk, brilliant, one of the most brilliant people that ever breathed, certainly in our lifetime. And he's got tools and access to resources that other super brilliant folks in centuries before us didn't have. But he made a comment at Madison Square Garden that he would be able to $2 trillion, no problem. We cut $2 trillion from the budget every year, no problem. And it is no problem, except for the politicians that won't vote for it. And these federal judges that will block the attempts to make it happen. So it's a sad state of affairs. You literally have the greatest run at gutting the size of government, getting it out of our lives, and one hell of a slogan to drain the swamp, and it can't. And one of the evidence points on that is when Epstein comes up. So Epstein's a campaign promise. We're going to smoke everyone who's ever fooled with that asshole, we're going to reveal. And then the decision is that we're not, that they are not. And that's a betrayal. So the revolt wins because it promises very powerful things. When the Democrats run, they're not running on revolt. And unique about the Democrats is they don't really ever attack each other. So they unite as a team, like in sports. They don't really, in my opinion, they don't unite on message. They have a message, obviously, and it's pretty much the same thing. And their enemies always seems to be the rich, even though Nancy Pelosi became extraordinarily wealthy during her time, making a couple hundred grand a year. I don't even think it's that much. I don't even think it breaks 200,000 bucks a year as a congressperson. So, yeah, incredible fortune that she built while she was a public servant. So, betrayal. Well, now that breaks trust. And when trust breaks, hope disappears. Right? I think one of the main ingredients to having hope is trusting it's worthwhile to have hope, whatever you're hoping for. I don't spend any time hoping that Publishers Clearinghouse is going to knock on my door today, because I don't participate in whatever the heck you have to do for them to eventually come by someone's house and give you a check. I don't participate, so I don't have any hope. If I can't connect to what I'm hoping for, then I don't have hope. So now, oh my gosh, now we have and it gets worse. We get the Epstein stuff, because that, at a time where women are being challenged on their own teams in the sports they play by men who just decide to take hormones and do their hair differently and whatever. And now they're suddenly competing as a woman. So they're being, hopefully that's gone, mostly gone now, but they're being challenged. The sanctity and the realm of womanhood, and when they play sports and how they're going to be special amongst their peers, right? And men play against theirs. There's a lot of women that were harmed, not women, girls harmed by what Epstein was doing. Bill Clinton visited the island very often. I don't know the number, but often. So we're not, I said it before, and I love it, and I'll continue to give credit to the show that coined the phrase, Bosch on Prime. Everyone matters or no one does. And just look outside your window. Does rain intentionally skip over a place? Does the wind, breeze, whatever, the sun shines equally on the evil and most wholesome of all of us. And so this is that ethic that I hate, that our generation, mine and up, is sending to our youth. We scream about global warming, the planet's going to end. Half the world says it isn't. I mean, which is it? How can there not be consensus on something? How could it be the party for this and the party for that? And then the youth just thinks adults suck. They can't manage anything. All they do is fight. All they do is work. They're only interested in themselves. I love the Eminem line, right? You effing do-gooders. Too bad you couldn't do too good as parents. I'm a bit of a failed parent. I'm struggling. I was struggling, right? In this ultra distracted world where we all have to run as fast as we can on the gerbil wheel to catch the carrot, which stays the same distance out in front of us. We actually are moving at this. It's an illusion. So there's just frustration everywhere, and no one is actually looking and stopping and saying, enough of the revolt and enough of the fighting. We need our perspective to come back to the 80 years we might get here on a planet. So then we turn to flag burning. Oh, okay. So we know why they do it in the Middle East. And it's, it's a wimpy thing to do. It's like most of the world these days. You're just hurling nasty comments through the internet at people. Nothing will hold you accountable. There's no consequences. In the old days, you just get your ass kicked. In the old days, you're burning our flag outside of this country. It's probably because we just kicked your ass. It's probably because you stepped to us in a way and we won. And why did we win? Not because we're great, because the ideals that formed the country led to a great people. The principles and the ethics that washed up on our shores, that the great founders of our country deliberated on for a long, long time and argued about where a comma should be or how the sentence structure should be. Like I love in the First Amendment, it isn't the Constitution asks Congress to write laws defending free speech. They shall make no laws abridging it, which means it exists already in its entirety. And the government can't do anything to squelch it out, except for the obvious carve-outs where you're just slandering the hell out of someone or false claims, false advertising kind of stuff. But those would be untruths. So you have freedom of speech. What Trump and MAGA championed for me was freedom one level down, or like an ingredient to speech. When you think about it, what are the parts of speech? Well, you have to think of something. You're going to be having a thought. My mouth doesn't move without thoughts unless I'm eating something, right? And then I might have thoughts from what I'm eating or while I'm eating or what I'm going to eat. But when I speak, I'm speaking a thought. I'm verbalizing it. And remember, on this planet, it's the only place it happens. All the galaxies, billion stars in each one of them. This is the only place it happens. The only place where there is freedom of thought. The deer don't have it. They make choices. They lift their head up to hear a sound in the woods. And they'll generally decide to run 9 times out of 10. Probably more than that. They just don't wait around. They might be curious, like, what was that? And then they just leave. They just run off. They're not going to wait around, find out if that's a threat or not. They're just leaving. They're living in the moment. And that's their freedom. They kind of don't really have fear thought. They have instinct. I asked this great person I worked with for a long time. I said, do humans have instinct or memories? And she said, memories. We don't have instinct. Our decision-making generally forms off memories. Memories, unfortunately, form during tough childhoods for all of us. We all had it. All of us did. Varying degrees. Obviously, some of it was just horrific. You gotta ask yourself, was Jeffrey Dahmer born or made? Nature really got that one wrong? Like, that came out of a womb? Predisposed to behave like that, to treat people like that, to think that way, live that way? No. Made. Nature doesn't make junk. And it doesn't have massive, breakdowns. And you look at the world today, how it's struggling. Humans are not making less awesome copies of humans in the womb. There's no degrading going on. It's just and I'm not going to get into it this time, but what the core is. You could read the book, 1971. You can get it on Amazon. But I'll tell you what the core is. just by the book. I want to stay on topic. So Epstein, now you can't burn the flag. Well, there was kneeling. You got to be able to kneel. If it's freedom, it's everyone matters or no one does, right? It's freedom for everything or nothing. Can't pick and choose. You can't start carpet bombing certain things. But this is the thing, right? You were once the revolt, now you're the establishment. You were once on offense, now you're on defense. That's not flow. You were in flow when you were in the revolt. So how does the revolt continue to be that? It's got to have wins. I think it's got to have wins, right? And it's going up against things it isn't winning. Doge didn't win. Gutting U.S. aid and listing all the stupid things our ridiculous government people, employees, whatever, officials chose to put money toward. All that nonsense. It's embarrassing. It's disgusting. At least America's willing to continue to put all that stuff on the news for the whole world to see just how ridiculous we are. But they're humans in their countries too. And they all do ridiculous stuff. At least that isn't gone. At least there's still that freedom of expression. The Iran strike. So you can't unpack the Israel topic line and all the submatter that goes beneath of it. But you can at least look, and my guess is you just see one side destroying the other. Like the other one can't even put up a fight. And you think, where's the slaughter rule? Where's the mercy rule? When does that trigger? And then you think, if you're going to continue to just murder our citizens, eventually there's a revolt. Someone had enough. They said enough. And the enough point was reached, and Israel throws everything it has. And now, there's bad optics. I'm not going to get into this. But I want to point out that initially it was America first. We're not going to meddle with foreign issues. Israel is a unique situation. Flag burning is not okay. We're going to shame you if you do that. And we're going to run on draining the swamp, and we're going to, skewer anyone who hung out and did bad stuff with Epstein. And then they're not. I'm not going to say we, because I'm complaining about it. I think full transparency. And so when you go into protection mode, though, that's when you're in fear. When you're in revolt mode, you're on the offense, you're charging ahead, you're going for it. Fear might be riding with you. Maybe it's a healthy fear, like fear of losing. And so you push hard and you end up winning. Great. And now we have this power struggle. So now what formed the revolt, which obviously we can all tell were different camps all coming together going, well, the most basic camp was just not Kamala, right? So just it's not Kamala, not Biden, not doing that again. So whoever else, will just vote for that. All the way up to, the Laura Loomers and Roger Stones, absolute advocates of an attempt by government to prescribe decent living, fairness. Charlie Kirk's death, God rest his soul. Was that really what the first headlines were all about? That Dems breed hostility? Only the side, the Republican side, the conservative side is taking these lethal hits, and the liberal side isn't? Yeah. It might be the case. And it might be born out of the two different belief systems. But when a party runs on revolt, when the country is so far down the line that revolt is how elections win, like Mandami, that was a revolt. I swear to God, as I was taking notes on my thoughts here, and I look down once in a while to check some things that I don't want to forget. I'm 55. I don't have the memory I had when I was 25. Of course, when you're 25, you think you know everything. I certainly did. But you can see this cycle. So let's zoom all the way back to the colonists, zoom all the way forward to today. Revolt. What would actually stop the need for there to be any revolts? If the government shrank by 80, 90%, if it wasn't on TV anymore, if we didn't give a damn, we didn't have to give a damn what they were doing, because the greatest thing that MAGA could ever deliver, and I'm going to talk about its ultimate mistake in a second, would have been power to the people. Come just however the F that needed to happen. Just go for it. Just push everything to where it ends up at the Supreme Court. Because the only shot you have at actually soliciting the voice of the Constitution, because the politicians are not, they're not the voice of the Constitution. More this, more that, it does have an end point where enough is enough, and the ultimate voice for that is the Constitution, and the only speakers for that is the Supreme Court. And we don't have any, we don't have the overwhelming quantity of activist justices on the Supreme Court right now. You have constitutional enthusiasts. Look, it's so arrogant to think that you get to edit the Constitution when you didn't give your life for it to be written. It's just there has to be a steady state. I mean, thank God the moon doesn't just wander off and then come back later. It's in a steady state. It's the same distance all the time from our planet, because if it left, the oceans are done. There's no more shipping. You would have 200, 300, 400 foot waves all over the place. Every beachside community, you just imagine wherever you live right now, a 200-foot wave washed up on shore. Would that hit where you live? That would hit a lot of people. That would hit a massive part of the population, probably half the globe. Huge, right? Think of the Eastern Seaboard, from Miami to New York to Boston, all the way up, right? All those great cities, they're all on the coast. LA, maybe LA could use, no, there's a lot of great people who live there. Everyone's great. Everyone matters, or no one does. But I do remember growing up that we all kind of thought it was and people I was around, that California's on its own tectonic plate, so that's all right if it just sails off and becomes its own thing, and we don't have to deal with them anymore. Obviously, that isn't going to happen very quickly. So when we come back to what actually ends the need for revolt, it would be Donald Trump, the MAGA movement, pushing breaking arms at their elbows. I love this Lions coach. When he first kind of came into prominence for the Detroit Lions a few years back, he was like, we're biting kneecaps. Fighting dirty. Obviously, they don't do that. And he does not teach the ethic that his players should be dirty. Raiders had that, a long time ago, and that's gone. No one does that anymore. These coaches don't scream and yell. Those guys are gone. They're not effective. Revolt is temporarily effective until it becomes the establishment. So if it's love of country, if it's love of the people, and I do believe, absolutely, because I've been on job sites. One of my first jobs as a kid was sweeping out construction sites, carrying all the, the 2x4 parts and 2x12s, whatever they cut, the ends they weren't going to use, carrying all that stuff and trash cans down to the dumpster and sweeping out all the sawdust and straightening up the job site. So, I know blisters, and I know hot and cold, and I know sweat, and I know dirt. Come home stinky. I think Trump does know that. He grew up on job sites. He knows hardworking people made him have a living space on the top of the building that he built. But it's people, good people, that just chose to do those jobs. They chose to be electricians, pour concrete, framers, whatever, craftsmen, whatever they chose to do, they chose to do it. They weren't in pursuit of wealth. We've always just been in pursuit of peace. We used to have peace without a government. The government got so big it destroys peace. Just think, man, women, $7 trillion a year? That's what the government needs to rip through? $7 trillion a year. A billion seconds is 31 years. So most people have the luxury, hopefully it's a luxury, to live at least 2 billion seconds old, 62 years old. Average lifespan is longer than that. A trillion seconds is 31,000 years. Our government has mismanaged because it pushed itself, it stumbled its way into the life management business. And it has failed so effing badly at this. The clearest measurement you need is that it's created over 1 million years of debt. We have been a country for almost 250 years. And they've created 1 million years of debt in the last 25. Push everything you can, just break, just whatever, just break stuff, push it all to the Supreme Court. That's the only reset button there really is. That's the only place where sensibility actually lives. That's the only place where the tiebreakers and the parties for this and the parties for that don't get to say anything anymore. Because when the Supreme Court speaks, then it's done. It's over. They've spoken. Other than that, AI can do it. And that's horrific. So, I pay attention to some things in the financial world. One of them's gold. People think, oh my gosh, gold's 4,000. Gold was 2,200, it's 2,500, it's 2,800, it's 3,000, it's 3,500. Oh my God, it's 4,000. Oh my God, it's 4,300, 4,200, 4,100, 4,000, 4,100. What is gold doing at 4,000? So it's just a question. I'm not a financial advisor. But is gold an optimist play? Is that optimism? Or is it pensive? Like, does money find its way into gold because it's beating the street with earnings? It's got a new product. It's got a whole new market. No, doesn't have any of that. Gold's on the periodic table. Might as well be like, anything else on the periodic table. So what's gold? So why? Okay, so if it's a pensive play, if it's scared money looking for relief, so it's leaving something it's afraid of, and it considers gold to be relief, right? Peace, right? Trying to get the anxiety off your money, like all people are doing today, just trying to get the anxiety out of their head. Just trying to get back to what God made or the universe made, which was peace. You look outside your window, where's the fighting? Is the grass fighting, struggling? Birds? I do think it's interesting that the little birds are always attacking the big ones, but big ones just ignore it. They just fly away. They don't turn and murder the little bird. They just fly away. So where's the struggle outside your window? It's only in the human realm, and it's only because of the government. All around, all the governments, they're all way beyond their purpose. They are no longer a service to their people. They're a disservice. Because I don't give a damn. I want peace. I know there will always be good and bad actors. I know there'll be good and bad bumper crops and failed crops and droughts and plagues and hot summers and cold summers and whatever, and winning seasons, losing seasons, whatever. There's always going to be all that. You'll never legislate that out of our existence on this planet. One of maybe two where there's oxygen in sight. Just, God, let that sink in. How magical it is that you're here with a beating heart in your chest and you breathe while you're sleeping. You don't have to manage that. And neither does the government. The effing government doesn't need to manage any of this stuff. So here's how AI will fix it. Gold, in my opinion, is at 4,000. So it peaked at $2,000 an ounce at the end of 2012. So in 2012, right? So at the end of the Great Recession, when they printed just tens of trillions of dollars, the Great Recession isn't something we healed from. I just want you to know that. We are a failing economy without the printed money. And we're a failing economy because of it. And that's what's causing all the prices to go up. But your pay doesn't go up at the same pace at all. It's 4-to-1. Your pay goes up 1, commodity prices go up 4. So that's why you're in debt. That's why you're miserable. And that's why the government continues to struggle and think it's going to find solutions like the 50-year mortgage. That's just such lunacy. At 7% on a 30-year, you'd pay $1.2 million in total money, ballpark, for a $500,000 loan. On a 50-year, you'd pay over $2 million. You might as well rent. What the hell owning? You'll never be in equity position on a 50-year loan. You buy a car, you're generally underwater. If you bought a brand new one, you're not going to sell it for what you just signed away, with no money down. You're not going to get your money out of that. it's already at a losing, if you turn around and sold it the next day, you take a hit. That's my point. This will be the biggest mistake of MAGA, that it is all in on AI, because it's all in on bringing money to the country. And it's all in on investment. And it's so interesting. Foreign trillions of dollars coming to America. Gold's at $4,000 an ounce because it knows that all of the jobs are about to be replaced. And the beautiful thing about gold is it is truth. It's just truth. It's one thing. It's many things, but it's one thing. And it's just truth. And it can't be lied to. It's unbelievable. You don't really use it for anything other than jewelry and airbag sensors. You can just sit in a dark room and give value to your paper. And the key thing it does is it limits governments. It makes it impossible for them to become of any irritating size. They make stupid decisions. Vietnam, why don't we just fight the war to win? If you're going to send 10 ships, 10 Army guys, 10 Marines, 10 planes, then send 10,000. But it's fear, cowardice that lives inside that beltway. Well, if we hit them too hard, the Chinese might come over the border and the Russians might. Okay, well, then don't be in the fight. Don't be in the fight. Why are there 56 or 7,000 names on that wall? And so what? Who cares? You built some wall. All these Vietnam vets can go and see their buddies' names on the wall, but there shouldn't be a wall. There should have just been a victory. It's that cowardice that continues to lead all of the governments around the world because it's a certain human that's attracted to go work there and run for those offices. And I'm not generalizing things. I'm just saying overall, what is winning in central governments is the cowardice. And to allow AI to come, and because you offer AI to a company, look, you don't have to pay him any money or her. You don't have to pay it any money. You don't have to give it health insurance. You don't have to pay income taxes on it. You don't have to give it a parking spot. You don't have to pay anything. You just buy the software. We have a little maintenance fee that you'll pay every year, and that's it. And it's not going to forget to set the parking brake on the dump truck and crush a family of 4 in a caravan. And it's not going to get drunk. It's not going to call in sick. It's not going to shoot up the place. It's not just going to quit. It's not going to blow up your brand. I mean, I was reading a report the other day. This, high profile, very veteran, I think he was a banker. He was put in receivership. He was put in charge of a receivership, and he got caught with little boys. AI doesn't have any of those problems. So absolutely. And this is what's ridiculous about this is our Achilles heel. God, we suck at having vision. This kind of vision. I mean, asbestos was great, fireproof. Oh, it causes cancer, kills lots of people. It's smoking in the surgery. We're not good at this. We can't see around corners, but we can see this one. AI should be literally made illegal. Now, while you're loving the emails it's writing for you and how it's keeping your daily calendar, it's making you more efficient. Absolutely, you're getting sucked in by the temporary benefits of using it. But it is going to replace you. If you have a routine job, your job is gone. They haven't hired software developers in 2 years. Powell just came out recently and said hiring is essentially flat. And anything that can automate itself will. Absolutely, one of the biggest costs to a company is its labor. I'm not talking about AI is going to become your new landscaper next year. The robotics part of it's down the road. But what do you think is the biggest play for Tesla? More cars? No. It's robotics. Tesla robots. That's what can earn. That's one of the main contributors that can earn Elon Musk $1 trillion pay package. Robotics. Yes, they want to deliver massive amounts of cars. But the future is likely the self-driving car. You won't own one anymore. You won't have the money to. I mean, we're literally shifting into state-managed life 100%. The government has found its way in the life management business. That's why life sucks for most people, because they suck at doing that. And anyone would. It's not them personally. That's where the founders at least had a shot at protecting us. 50 presidents, 50 governors in charge of their little part of the country. dealing with the uniqueness of their state, wherever it's located, whatever it's got in the dirt, whatever its natural resources are, its climate, et cetera, et cetera. Instead of one person managing 350 million people, and revolt is what gets you into the office. That's what formed the country. That's fine. And it beat the British, and it set us up to be independent. When revolt is how you get elected these days, like Mandami or Trump, not put anyone down. It worked. But that's actually where you want to stop and look at the crux and look beneath the surface and say, oh my God, if revolt is what wins an election, what does that say about the status of our country? Let's get the government out of the governing business. Let's get them back to being a facilitator, not an engineer, just a pass-through, but not the arbiter of change. The change they keep bringing about is exactly what continues to change the erosion level to a new lower position in your life, the quality of your life, how your peace is gone. You'll have to move there. There's some, things you could do, but that's another episode. So when we look at this infighting in MAGA, of course, because it was cobbled together to win. Once you won, now you're on the defense and it all falls apart. Of course. Because at least on the Republican side, they don't really play for a team. They play for a message. The Democrats play on a team. They don't ever badmouth anyone. And they can come up with the most embarrassing people in the world. Waltz and Kamala Harris for the top offices in the country. Like they have no shame. They don't attack each other. And the Republicans do. This infighting with Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson it's just more distraction. And the wolf that you feed wins. The white wolf or the dark wolf. It's your choice. But AI, over the next couple of years, will automate probably enough employment to where you're done. We are an analog planet. We've invented digital things. We are analog beings. We are not digital. The minute we invent the digital being that can do our analog job, we don't eat. It's the only reason you go to work. It's to have some romance, attract a mate, and eat. And you can't attract a mate if you didn't eat for a week or two. Yeah. Most people aren't into emaciation. But we are into emancipation. So now you got to make a bet. Do you think we could start a movement that stops AI in its tracks? I don't know. Be awesome. Be the greatest accomplishment of the human race in this century. Maybe in a human existence. I mean, you had these crappy kings, Saddam Hussein's, right? You had these oligarchs, these czars, horrific living conditions. Some of them still exist today, obviously. Like Putin. I can't imagine living in Russia. Especially with all the greatness that could be. I mean, they span, 11 time zones? More natural resources than all the other places on Earth. It's unbelievable, but they're so corrupt because they're so fear-based. They think they won't do well if they don't stay the outsider. Just join in. Be a part of the neighborhood. My point is, though, probably going to need to look at how, let this clarify. If the revolt can't happen, this will destroy Donald Trump's legacy down the road. Because, when you look back and that, Monday quarterbacking, that backseat driving, decade or so, maybe not even that long, when he's out of office, this will be the end. He'll be blamed for inviting the rampant, rabid approach of artificial intelligence instead of squelching it out and passing extraordinarily strict rules against its proliferation. It will be what undoes him. It will be what kills his legacy is AI. Because when it replaces your job, which is your access to eating and romantic excursion, I'm trying to be cute, but when you're young, up until maybe you're 80, 70 years old, some of the things you look forward to is a meal and some romance, right? Whatever's on TV, whatever's in the paper, catching fish, golfing, whatever. Fine. But man, romantic connection with another human in a meal? That's special stuff. And again, it's the only planet this happens on. It's the only one. Maybe there's two, because we have seen the UFOs. God. Have it all replaced by some computer thing so corporations run more efficiently? What a lunatic idea. So how do 350, let's say, I'll just end with this. Let's say, there's 350 million people in the country. Let's just carve that in half and say there's, 175 million people that work. Let's just carve that in half. And you unemploy half of that. So their meals are just, government cheese. Who pays for that? They just print more money? The dollar's worth 3 cents. Used to be worth 100. It's losing like 2 pennies of buying power a year. I haven't seen, it's hard to find updates on that. They probably try to keep that crap from being measured, really. Like, it's such bad news. And the Federal Reserve website seems gamified. But 3 cents, so 97% of the potency of the lifeblood of your country's currency has been murdered, squandered every year. That's what the $2 trillion in debt is that they're creating every year. So MAGA is fracturing. It's all silly. We can just argue about these symptoms all day long and get lost in it and distracted, and then we die. And what was the point of our life? Just be arguing all the time? It's time to check out and drop out. It's either time for us to truly, and I don't know how it starts. Maybe it starts with this podcast. Probably not. But could there be a revolt against AI where it just gets shut down and made illegal? And you can say, China will come. Great. Well, we'll fight it. We'll fight China. We'll find ways to be the white wolf and fight the evil in the world, which is one of the things America formed over. That life wasn't good. It was dark in Europe. And it was free here. Why? Not because we didn't have paved streets, because we didn't have government.